Everyone, welcome to the Happy Wife School Show. We are on episode 49 today, which means next week it'll be episode 50. I think that is so cool. And next week I will be live from San Diego. We're going to be there as a team for a conference, and I'm still going to do the live show from where we are staying. I think it's going to be another Q&A since you guys seem to really like that last week. So we'll see. But if you guys can let me know in the chat that you can hear me and everything is coming through okay, then that would be wonderful. Coming through loud and clear. Thank you, Phil. And speaking of Phil, and Steve right there, I see you too. Hi. Thank you so much for all you do on Saturdays and making the chat a great place to be. Don't mess with Phil and Steve. Keep it a respectful place there in the chat. Make their jobs easy. Evo's not able to be here with us today, but he'll be back soon. So we'll have a great show. Excited to be here. We're talking about what happened to the woman I married. And where we're going to end up is going into 10 things your wife will stop doing when you get married. And that's where we're headed today. Before we get into it, just a couple reminders. If you like listening to the live show in podcast format, be sure to go follow me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can even find the podcast on the channel under the podcast tab. And that's an easy way to share with others too when you think they could benefit from an episode or a topic. Be sure to go check out Josie's YouTube channel, Escape the Alternative Health Matrix. You can find the link in the description below. Josie is doing a phenomenal job helping people to outgrow chronic illness and autoimmune diseases by working on their emotional state, which is her own journey. And many of you are experiencing her course and how wonderful it is. So if you or your spouse struggle with autoimmune or chronic illness and you haven't been able to find a working solution, then you definitely want to go check Josie out. And latest episode of Talking Points is out on X and Rumble. So be sure to go listen to that if you haven't already. I've got another one in queue in the works, editing it. So excited for that. Other things coming up. We've got the happywifeschool.com almost ready and complete. So my website's going to be changing because as it stands right now, it's pretty outdated and needed to align with the YouTube channel. So super excited about that. And that'll be live soon. So I think that's all the announcements for today. We'll get into the topic. So what happened? What happened to the woman I married? That's where we're going today. And in the setup and in the beginning here, I really want to talk to the women, and thank you to all the women who have been joining the Saturday live show. I don't always get to read all the chat here live with you guys, but I do take time to read through it after, and I love the participation from women happening in the chat and on the live show. So I'm speaking to the ladies here, and as a reminder, my message is for women who are married to good men. Doesn't mean good men are perfect or don't have issues and problems, but they're good-hearted, they're kind, they're thoughtful, they're generous, they're hardworking, they want to take responsibility. Most women can look back to the man that you married and know you married a good man. And we have to see how is it as women we've been showing up that has pushed that good man away, and he's maybe disengaged from the relationship, maybe he's withdrawn, maybe he reacts to the ways that you show up, because that puts the power and control in our hands to be the solution. And then that good man is right there waiting for you. The channel is also for good men who struggle with the woman ways that I talk about on the channel and wanting to know how to navigate that. So I want this to be, because I don't always mention it, but the subtitle of the channel is The Red Pill for Women. So I want today's episode to be another opportunity for women to be red-pilled, meaning to see the truth in this context, to see the truth of our woman ways and how that makes us feel about ourselves and impacts our own sense of fulfillment and contentment and connection to ourselves, and also the grave impact that our woman ways have on our husbands and have on the marriage that we have control over to change and make the marriage a wonderful, beautiful place to be for ourselves and for our husbands, and have what I talk about, the dance. And the dance in marriage really stems from the differences in us. Not rocket science here, but men and women are different, and we're wired differently, and we're never going to be able to relate to each other in the exact same ways that we think and that we process and the things that are important to us. But we can find an acceptance and a tolerance and an ability to dance through the challenges or issues that come up, and learn to be together in a sense of peace and harmony and fulfillment in the relationship. And that can only happen, I believe, and see in my experience, that can only happen when, as women, we're willing to look at ourselves and wake up to the truth of our unhealthy, destructive patterns in the marriage and in our lives. And for a man, a good man, to wake up and see the reality of his wife and what's happening, because good men are gaslit by us to believe that they are the problem. So that's why, as women, we need to be red pilled. So before we get into where we're leading up to today is 10 things your wife will stop doing when you get married, I want to talk a little bit about what's the breakdown. Why, as women, do we change so much after marriage and pull a bait and switch of who we presented ourselves to be to our husbands when they made a major life choice to marry us and want to commit to us and spend their lives with us. And then we get married, and as women, the facade drops. Sometimes the facade drops instantaneously. Many men will share, she changed the night we got married. I was like, all of a sudden the wedding was over, and then I didn't know who this strange woman was. And then for some of us as women, we can hold the facade a little longer, maybe a year, maybe 3 years, maybe even 5 years. Or we can really hold that facade, but underneath we're resentful, we feel burdened, we're miserable. And our husbands can feel that. And then eventually the facade goes. And so why does that happen? And in this, like I said, really wanting the women who are listening and paying attention to see this in yourself. It's not about making yourself bad and wrong. It's giving yourself a path forward to have the life and marriage you dreamed of and said you wanted. And having a solution, because as long as it's your husband that's the problem, nothing's going to change. It's just going to keep spiraling and getting worse. So as women, we really live, and again, this stems from, again, like I say, and just said a few moments ago, we're really wired differently. We're really wired differently as women and men. And as women, we live in this fantasy world, really thinking that getting married, having a family is going to make us happy and going to create this life for us that we dreamed of and envisioned. And the fantasy in that is not recognizing that the marriage or family or life you dreamed of and envisioned doesn't just happen. It doesn't just unfold and you got the man, you got married, you got the life. It doesn't just happen. That's the fantasy we live in, is thinking it'll just happen. And we don't recognize that we have to actually show up and follow through with who we say we are, who we presented ourselves to be, the promises and vows we made to our husband, that as good men, they believed and thought that's who we would be. But as women, we are not wired to think into the future and plan and understand what are the choices and decisions I need to make? Who do I need to be? How do I show up to uphold my commitment and my vows and create a happy, wonderful, successful, healthy marriage? We do not think those things through. We can speak the words, But the problem is that we are not connected to the words we are saying. There's no connection to ourselves. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is here in a moment, why there's no connection to ourselves. But there really is no connection to our words of who we say we are, the promises and vows we make to our husbands. There's no connection in that to actually follow through, because we have no sense of obligation and no sense of commitment that those words actually mean anything, and that we have to uphold our end of the bargain to make it happen. Ladies, the promises we made, who we presented ourselves to be, who we told our husbands we would be, and the things we would do with them, and the life we would create with them, takes work. I didn't see this. I didn't know this. I just thought, oh, you get married and it just happens. I was this woman. And in working with women for 10 years, we're all like this on a spectrum, as I talk about. But a healthy, happy marriage takes work. And I know as women, you don't want to believe this and you don't want to understand this. But your husband, as a good man, wants to do the work. He wants and takes responsibility for the vows and commitment he made to you, and wants to show up and be that knight in shining armor and do the work to make the marriage successful. Good men understand. Again, we're wired differently. It's not that good men don't have issues and problems, and good men are the first to say, and I hear it all the time when I meet with good men for consultation for the course, or they reach out with an issue that they would like my support and perspective with. One of the first things they'll say is, well, I've made mistakes too. My wife is not solely responsible, and I did these things and I did X, Y, and Z. Good men want to take responsibility. They're wired to take responsibility, and they are there and want to show up and do the things to make the marriage work. They understand that the marriage takes work and that it doesn't just happen, but we don't understand that. So as women, we need to understand that we live in this altered reality, thinking that it just happens. We bury our head in the sand and we disappear from the marriage. And again, that can be very early on, night of the wedding. We disappear very early, often, from the marriage, or at some point, when it's not going the way we dreamed it would go. And it's not what we imagined in our fantasy of what it would be, because we have not slowed down to take responsibility to make it what we want. So I talk about can't victim and can't take responsibility. And I want to talk about that. And part of this is a new angle I don't believe I've talked about before. But that in living in can't victim and being so entrenched and putting the power and burden in our husband's hands to make us happy, to make the marriage what we want it to be, we have no responsibility to realize that we decided to get married. We made the choice, which has created where we are. And can't victim because we have put the power and burden in our husband's hands. We cannot see the choices and decisions we've made. We cannot see the behaviors we have, the woman ways I talk about on the channel, that are creating the issues and problems and making the marriage hard and difficult. Marriage is hard work, but it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be difficult. We perceive it that way and become so miserable and stop being the woman our husbands married because we live in camp victim, blaming our husbands for the way things are going. When we live in camp take responsibility, we recognize we've made this choice. So I can either make it hard and difficult, or I can put on my big girl pants do my best. And when you're married to a good man, if you do your best and you're taking responsibility for being a wife and your commitments and vows for you because it makes you feel good about yourself, and your husband in the marriage gets the benefit of that, that's where your good man is waiting for you. But we have to live in Camp Take Responsibility. So part of what happens in Camp Victim, when we're putting the responsibility and burden in our husband's hands to make the marriage work, to make it happy and successful, to make us happy, which is impossible, in Camp Victim, because we've put that power and control outside of us, in that there's no me. That's why we're so disconnected from ourselves as women, because when we live in Camp Victim, there's no self. You have given the responsibility and the burden of your experience over to another and over to circumstances in your life. And when there's no you living in Camp Victim, then you have no self-awareness of how you are showing up and the behaviors you have that are pushing your husband away, maybe causing him to respond negatively, causing him to throw his hands up and give up. We have no ability, no self-awareness in that to see our part and role. As I say, as women, we're the problem in a relationship with a good man. And in a way, in that, it's not excusing us in our behaviors. Please don't misunderstand. But we are the problem. And in a way, it's not our fault, because in Camp Victim and being so entrenched in it, and then getting it validated by our friends, family, therapist, we really live in this altered reality, seeing our victim story play out. And in that altered reality, it's all we can see. It's a psychological trap. Victim is a defense mechanism we have as humans. And yes, we all as humans live in Camp Victim in certain places in our lives. As women, we are very entrenched in Camp Victim in our marriages and in other areas too. But we really, 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 really live in Camp Victim, blaming our husbands. And in that, we create this altered reality that we can't get out of, because it's actually a defense mechanism from the mind to not have to look at ourselves and expose how we are showing up in our issues and problems, because that would cause us to be vulnerable. And as women, we fear being wrong, because we believe being wrong means I am wrong. There's something wrong with me. So psychologically and unconsciously, we protect ourselves at all costs from having to be wrong, because it doesn't just mean not correct or you're not in the right to us. It means we're POSs and scum of the earth. And it's very exposing to us and something we push away. Just as a man doesn't want to see himself as weak, as women, we don't want to see ourselves as wrong. So when we are entrenched in victim, that's again a psychological trap and a defense mechanism to not have to see ourselves, because we might be wrong. And that's terrifying to us. It's like the equivalent of death is seeing ourselves as wrong as women. So in a way, because we're so entrenched in Camp Victim, and that is the altered reality we live in, we can't get out. That's why you need the red pill, to see the truth of yourself, so you have a way out. And again, can create a healthy relationship with your husband, which can only happen from Camp Take Responsibility, because only in Camp Take Responsibility is there a me. I can only be connected to myself when I'm willing to take responsibility and see that I am where I am based on my choices and decisions, that I got married And here's marriage and the challenges that come up with marriage. And how am I showing up in that? How am I creating the challenges and issues? What can I be doing differently? And where can I take accountability for myself to move forward and change? And that's the magic and beauty of being with a good man, is that when we are willing as women to take responsibility for ourselves, they're right there next to us, wanting to have that dance and wanting to have a good marriage. But we have to move into Camp Take Responsibility so that there is a me, because I'm not looking outward in Camp Take Responsibility of who or what is responsible for my experience, or who or what is to blame, or who or what is causing my unhappy, miserable experience in marriage. In Camp Take Responsibility, the focus is inward, of what is it in me, so that there can actually be a solution, because we're the only ones we have control over to change. Getting into 10 things your wife will stop doing when you get married. This is a list. For one, to red pill women to see the truth of our woman ways, so we can wake up and see ourselves and the behaviors we're contributing that are causing the issues and problems with a good man in a marriage. If you change even just a couple of these behaviors, you will see a dramatic effect and transformation in your marriage with your husband as a good man. But you can't do it for that. You have to do it for you, because you recognize, ooh, just like I did, ooh, that's not who I want to be. And that's me. And I'm doing those behaviors. And that makes me feel really bad about myself. And seeing, oh, and that actually has consequences on my marriage and husband, and is devastating to them, and also causes them to pull away and withdraw and stop doing nice things for us. This list is also for good men, to validate your experience in your marriage, to know you are not crazy, and that the behaviors you see in your wife and how you are feeling, maybe neglected. A man shared with me yesterday, he feels like an obstacle in his own house. And feeling wrong and bad and constantly in trouble. For you to see that your experience is real, and that these issues are happening, and your wife is behaving in these ways, because what happens is we gaslight you so much to make you believe you're the problem, and that we stop doing these things because of you, or we have 1,000,001 excuses of why we stop doing these things that as a good man you buy into and believe are valid because you're a good man. And you take your wife for face value and don't look beyond that. So in these behaviors of 10 things we stop doing as women, and 10 things your wife will stop doing when you get married, it's really a spectrum. This really is highlighting, again, another angle of the bait and switch of who we are before getting married versus then who we are after we get married, and who we stop being. And that lies on a spectrum too. There, on the high end of the spectrum, there are women who really knowingly misrepresent themselves and are very calculated, knowing that they're not going to be who they present themselves to be after marriage. Example I thought of might be a gold digger, and a woman really looking to marry a man with a lot of money, or who's very well off so she can be taken care of, and she knows that. She's purposely looking for a man that makes a lot of money and knows she has no intention of following through with who she's presented herself to be. That's the high spectrum. And then on the lower end of the spectrum are what I call happy pill women, which that was me, who really believed and bought into the facade of who we presented ourselves to be. I really, really, really believed that I was just the sweetest, nicest person, and really believed in the facade I presented myself to be. And we have that facade not because we're bad, awful people. We have that facade because we're so scared of seeing our flaws. Again, because we'll be wrong and bad. We're so scared of seeing our flaws that we unconsciously create this facade and really buy into it and believe into it ourselves. And then our husbands buy into it and believe in it as well. Because as happy pill women, we're doing all the same things. We have all the same woman ways, but it's covered up and very unconscious because we don't want to see our manipulative ways, because it would cause us to look at the ways we're not being good people. As happy pill women, I'm a good person. I want everyone to see me as a good person. I want to see myself as a good person. And I don't want to see any flaws or anything that might disrupt who I know myself to be. That's really what's going on unconsciously. So this isn't to paint women in a bad light. It's to wake us up. And for men, not to be a victim to your wife and your situation, but to see the reality so you can get out of the brainwashing and regain your strength and confidence and no longer give your power away to your wife in these woman ways. So number one, 10 things your wife will stop doing when you get married. And please, in the comments, tell me what your wife has stopped doing or stopped doing once you got married and anything that I miss. So number one is having fun. When you get married, your wife will stop having fun. She might have been more the party girl and the fun girl and the spontaneous girl before you got married. And then she pulls the rug out from underneath you and becomes the fun police. I have a live show you can go check out. Where Did My Fun Wife Go? I think that's what it's called, something like that. And our excuses. So what I'd like to do in this list, I'm going to give what our excuses are as women that we stop these things, and then the truth of what's really going on so we can see that, because we can only heal from the reality, and we can only heal when we are willing to see the truth. We can't heal from our victim stories and our blame and our excuses, because we will never take responsibility. Our excuses and our victim stories and the blame is a way to avoid accountability and not have to see the truth. So I had to learn I could only heal if I saw the truth of my experience. I couldn't heal living from my excuses and stories of blame. So we stop having fun as women once we get married, and our excuses are, and that's another piece. Please tell me the excuses your wife gives for these, because I could do a whole mini series on this list and all the excuses we give for the bait and switch and how we stop being who we were before getting married. But I'm just going to give the most common excuses that I know as a woman, that I've given and other women share, and even, seeing the comments from the men on the videos. So the excuses we give are just, I'm tired. Everything is on me. I have no energy left to give to have fun. And our excuse is, it's time to grow up and be responsible. We also give the excuse of blaming our husbands that they are not responsible. They're immature. They're not growing up, so we can't trust them to depend on them to do the things that we need them to do. So we have to do everything, so there is no time for fun. Another excuse we might give is, well, he stopped and he never plans anything and it's all on me. He never wants to do anything fun and never plans anything fun. The burden falls on my shoulders and I just don't have time for that. The truth of why we stop having fun is We feel that fun is not being in control, and that it's irresponsible, it's immature, it's frivolous. So as women, we get to this place where we have to be in control. We are so scared of life. We are so scared of things not being in order and being what that we need them to be to feel safe and in control. That's why we stop having fun. We have to shut down all fun because fun might make us out of control. And we also hold on to, and I can speak to my own experience in this as well, we hold on to the mistakes we made, the poor choices we made when we were younger and more carefree, and think if I have fun, I'm going to make poor choices. I'm going to make mistakes. I won't be in control of myself. So I just have to shove all fun down and shut it down. That's the truth of why we stop having fun. Number 2 of what your wife will stop doing when you get married. Number 2, we stop taking care of our appearance. That can mean wearing sweats all the time or ratty clothes or frumpy clothes. We stop doing our hair. We stop wearing makeup. We will put on weight. We won't take care of our health. Our excuses, or one of our excuses, again, we can have a list of excuses. Tell me what I miss in the comments in the chat. But our excuses are, I'm drained. For many women, I'm a mom now, and I don't have time for me. My life is about doing everything for everyone else, and I don't have time to do my hair and put my makeup on. I'm too tired. I'm too drained. Another excuse we might give is, and I relate to this one, that I'm too much of a mess and too messed up inside and emotionally, and it's too much work. It's too much work to take care of myself, and I really just need to focus on just making sure I'm not too overwhelmed or too depressed or too anxious, and I can't put energy to that anymore. The truth is of why we stop taking care of our appearance. We make ourselves unattractive to push our husbands away so we don't have to have sex. We're going to get to that one in the list as well. But that's the truth. Where it's stopping taking care of our appearance is a husband repellent to push them away so we don't have to have sex. We don't have to be intimate. We don't have to have affection, because we know if we look cute, then our husband's going to give us attention and want to flirt and be affectionate and maybe want sex. So we stop taking care of our appearance. Number 3 of what your wife stops doing once you get married. Number 3, being nice. Before getting married, she's really nice. Does lots of nice things. Our excuse of why we stop being nice, twofold. One, we stop being nice because of all the things you're not doing for us. Again, thinking of camp victim. And you're not doing the things I expect of you, so why would I be nice and do nice things for you? Or it's a massive gaslight to our husbands by saying, I'm nice. Look at all the things that I do. And we'll do the things to be nice, quote unquote. But there's a massive agenda behind it to be able to say, look at all the things I do for you. You don't do anything for me. And we actually use it as ammo. Your husband can feel that. Even if you're doing, quote unquote, all the right things and being a quote unquote good wife, when there's an emptiness behind it and resentment and a sense of burden, your husband feels that. So it's not nice to him. The truth of why we stopped being nice is nice was just a facade to get what we wanted. We thought in getting married, our husbands would solve all our problems and provide this life. And then they can't. because we're in camp victim and we're not taking responsibility for our side of the street. So we think, what's the point of even being nice anymore? There's no point to it. Number 4 of what your wife will stop doing when you get married is being independent, meaning having a life and having things that she likes to do and having her own interests and being capable of taking care of herself and doing the things she needed to do when she was single. And her excuse of why she stopped being independent and having a life and interests that she enjoyed and hobbies is, I gave my life up to be married and be a wife to you and to have kids, and there's nothing left for me. The truth of why we stopped being independent is we got married for someone else to share the burden of life with, because we didn't want it all on us. And in getting married, we can have someone to blame when things don't work out. Number 5 of what your wife will stop doing. And again, a reminder, since we're halfway through, this is also for women to wake up and see if you can relate to any number of these, seeing how that contributes to the problems and issues in your marriage so that you can change and have a way forward, and your good man will be right there waiting for you. So number 5, we stop having sex. This one, again, the excuses can be endless. So tell me the excuses you hear in the comments and chat, or brave women, the excuses you have given. There's too much to do. I'm too tired. I have a headache. I don't feel well. I have nothing left to give. I'm too stressed. My hormones, my weight, my health. Again, the excuses are endless. And the truth of why we stop having sex is that there was always an agenda for why we had sex before getting married, to get married or to have kids. And we were never honest with ourselves about why we were having sex and used it as a tool to get what we wanted. Which is part of then why with affection, we don't want affection, because it might lead to sex, because we have shut ourselves down to it. And some of you have asked a really good question that I think I'm going to include in the Q&A next week, if that's the direction I end up going, which is, why does a woman become so terrified to have sex? Because that's part of what, like, we don't want affection because we're terrified it will lead to sex. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, hopefully next week. Number 6, and what your wife will stop doing once you get married, being affectionate. And the excuse we give is, you don't do the things I need to do to feel special and loved, or to feel emotionally safe and loved by you. So I'm not going to be affectionate. Or might give the excuse, you're just too needy and I'm not a touchy-feely person. It's just not who I am. That's an excuse I hear a lot. It's not my love language. Another excuse I hear a lot. And again, the truth is because affection leads to sex. And we push away anything that's going to lead to sex. Number 7, doing the things that you, as a good man, used to like to do with her. You know, when you were dating and first together and she got involved with your hobbies and your interests, you get married, she stops doing those things. The excuse is, I'm too busy to do those things anymore. There's no room. There's no time. We're not 20 anymore, or when we were younger, we have things to do. And the truth is, as women, we're chameleons, and we never liked those things in the first place. And we're too scared to be honest with ourselves, or too scared to be honest with you, because we became who we needed to be to get you. A part of the facade. Number 8 of what your wife will stop doing once you get married, being the fun, nice girl around your friends and family. The excuses we will give, they've hurt me in some way. They stopped being nice to me. Or I don't think they like me. I feel judged by them. I don't like being around them because I don't think they like me anymore. The truth We were only the fun, nice girl around your friends and family to get everyone on board, to validate you and thinking this is the woman for you. She's lovely and wonderful. And we're that fun, nice girl to be liked. And again, get all the chips on our side of the table. Number 9 of what your wife will stop doing when you get married. Number 9, being wifely and womanly. So, cooking you special meals. Maybe having candles lit and a woman's touch around the home. One that I thought of for myself, taking care of our husbands when they're sick and doting on them and making sure they feel nurtured and cared for, and like being a nurse. I can remember when my husband and I were first dating, we both loved chicken and dumplings. He's from the Midwest. I'm from the South. One of my favorite meals. Don't have it very often, but just a comfort. And I made him like a whole batch of chicken and dumplings once when we were dating and left it on his doorstep when he had the flu. I laughed about that. And our excuses are we have too many other responsibilities and tell you, well, oh, wouldn't that be nice if I did those things? I have to do this and this and that and that. I don't have time to do that. Or we will still do these things, but again, we feel burdened and resentful and build that case of look at everything I do for you, but there's no care in it. And our husbands can feel that. And the truth is of why she stops doing that is she's just not that into you anymore. And did those things to get you and make you think she was one way when she wasn't. And then we don't feel the responsibility and feel no connection to want to do those things anymore. And number 10 of what your wife will stop doing once you get married. This is probably the worst for good men, or one of the worst, is being your best friend and loving you. And our excuse is we're in a different phase of life, too many responsibilities, or we might say you've changed. You're not who you used to be. I don't feel like your best friend anymore because you're not the man that I married. When in reality, we're the ones that changed. And our husband's still right there being the man he is, and who we've been, and all these behaviors have pushed them away, and they've given up and they stopped trying. The truth is, we laid it on strong. Us against the world. We laid it on strong in our facade, again, to get you, and being who we had to be to make you think we were the one. So those are the 10 things women will stop doing once you get married. And also that for us as women to see the 10 things we stopped doing, again, as part of being red-pilled, to see the truth of our behaviors and how we are showing up that are causing the problems in a marriage with a good man. And for good men to wake up and see the reality of the woman that they're married to, not making her bad or wrong, but to validate and know, yes, this is your experience and this is real, and you're not crazy and you're not the problem in it. Because a good man is right there waiting. Again, I've said many times today, it's right there waiting to love you, care for you, be kind, work hard for you in the marriage. But after a while, why would they continue if this is how we're showing up? And of course, I know there's women listening. Well, he stopped doing all these things. So that's why. It's worth a shot. So what if you changed even a few of these things? What might that change in your marriage and the investment your husband could see from you in the marriage? When he sees no investment from you, it's a natural consequence that he gives up too. So I say often, ladies, we have to go first. You can as I was planning this, I said, gosh, because these are behaviors I've had to change in my marriage. And it's actually really fun to be the woman that I was before getting married. I missed her too. And so I know women listening, don't you miss her? Don't you miss this part of you? And what if you could learn to do it for you? To know yourself as loving and kind and a good wife, to feel good about yourself, and that the person you love and say you love the most, who adores you, gets you back. And I'll tell you, I was these things before getting married. Very much I can see now because I was a happy pill woman, but I was these things from a very fake place and very much a facade. And so the journey for women and the solution to knowing yourself and re-engaging in these things is building a healthy relationship with yourself. And so as I built a healthy relationship for myself, this was the woman waiting for me in a genuine, real way. I spoke with a woman the other day, and bless her and good for her. She's young. She was only 26. And watching the channel and seeing these things in herself and wanting to change and be a good role model for her younger sister and not repeat the patterns she saw in the women in her family. And of course, benefiting her boyfriend. She's not married yet. And she said, I don't feel real. When we live in a facade and this is who we pretend to be, either knowingly or unknowingly, we don't feel real. And we feel fake. And we're terrified we're going to be found out. And we have a constant anxiety in us. And that constant anxiety isn't happening to you because of something in your life. It's a disconnect from yourself. So as I've taken the journey, and it is a journey, as I've taken the journey to build a healthy relationship with myself, this was who was waiting. A woman that was, let me get my notes organized here. A woman that was fun, is fun, takes care of myself and my appearance, is not just nice, but kind. Being able to care for myself and do the things for me and not be codependent on my husband, having and enjoying sex, being affectionate and flirty with my husband, doing things he likes to enjoy with me, and not always needing it to be my way, and being able to share that, being fun and nice around our friend and family and our friends and family, and being engaged, being wifely and womanly, and knowing that in myself and really feeling connected to me as a woman, and being able to be my husband's best friend and love him because I'm being my best friend and loving me. I know that sounds cheesy and cliche, but it's true. That's why it has to start with our relationship with ourselves. So now I know myself as these things, but as me, as who I really, really am, not a facade of who I thought I had to be. And then my husband is right there waiting for me, and he just feels like the luckiest man in the world. And I have flaws, and I make mistakes, but this is the core of who I am, and being able to bring that into my marriage. My husband feels he won the jackpot, and I feel that way too about him and our marriage. So that's, ladies, why we want to see these things. Yes, our husbands deserve this woman that they thought they married and committed their life to. But if you do it for that, you'll be doing it for all the wrong reasons and resentful and just more entrenched in camp victim. You got to say, I want to go in there and get her back. I'd like to be her again and really be her and feel good and excited about my life and my marriage with my husband and just life in general. So that's why I teach women in my happiness course to build a healthy relationship with themselves, to work on that first before working on the marriage, because you got to get yourself right. And you can find the link to apply to that in the descriptions below. And for the good men listening, the solution is you can't change your wife. There's nothing you can do to make her be these things again. But what you can do is to recognize this is her problem and her unhappiness in herself, so that you don't, even though I know it is crushing and heartbreaking and it does hurt and it does feel personal, good men have to stop making this personal about them, so that you can get out of the brainwashing that you are the problem and it's something you've done or something you need to do to fix it, because you're throwing your actions into an empty bucket and it's going to make things worse. The best thing you can do to fight for yourself, your marriage, and your wife is to see the reality. And many good men will see their women in these behaviors on a spectrum. Most good men are not married to the high spectrum women of her woman ways. It's somewhere in the middle or low. And you can stop trying to do things she tells you will fix these things and put that energy into yourself to make sure you're caring for yourself and not buying into the games anymore. Eventually, over time, what can happen is your wife sees you being strong in yourself and she can't walk over you anymore. And she can start to respect you and re-engage in the relationship. And if she doesn't, then you know who you are married to. And you can have clarity about what are your values. Are you going to choose to stay and accept and focus on the good things? And you love your wife anyway, and you made a commitment, so you're going to make the best of it, but navigate it from a place of no longer being emasculated by your wife. Or you might make the choice of, my value is my mental health and not being in a relationship where I'm treated this way, and you might choose to leave. But you first have to build that confidence and strength in yourself and can't take responsibility, so you can make a clear, grounded choice for yourself and navigate it, being strong and confident in who you are. And that's what I teach men in my men's course, that you can also find the description below to apply to. So thank you all so much for joining me today. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already and would like to. Yeah, that was a fun topic. So I'm going to head over to the chat. Phil's going to be sending me some questions today, so I'll check that out and get to a few of those. But let's hop on over here. All right. Hi, just seeing some familiar faces there. Yeah. Good. Thank you for the contribution. Our system tells us that we are right in so many ways. To be told that you are wrong, it stings. Yeah. Thank you for your comment and contribution. All right, let's see. Coming back over here. Luke, Salty, nice to see you guys. Jojo, John, Sherry, thank you so much for being here, Sherry. You're a brave woman and very special. Your husband's very fortunate that you're willing to see yourself in the issues that I talk about. It's an interesting question I'm just seeing. I know Phil's going to send me some questions. Where did it go? Where did it go? I just saw it. It was something like, was that really her or was it not? Gosh, now I can't see the question. Phil, if you see that and you can send it to me, that would be great. But was it really her in the first place? I think is the question of the facade. Was that really her, or is the icky woman and how she's treating me really her? And it's kind of both. What I found and what most women find that I work with is who we presented ourselves to be in our facade is who we are in our core and the nature of who we are. We just have to learn to be that genuinely, because we as women really struggle with being who we think we need to be, especially to not just to get the guy and get married, but we really struggle with being who we think we need to be liked and accepted because we don't like ourselves and we don't accept ourselves. So we need that validation from other people. Not that many men and women can struggle with that, but as women, we seem to really struggle with that. And really, most women, that's how they've lived their whole lives. But what women find, and what I found when I did the work to build a healthy relationship with myself, to feel good about who I am, to accept myself, the good, the bad, the ugly, as I often say, then I found who I presented to myself to be was me. And now I get to be that very genuinely, and not as a projection out into the world to be liked and accepted or to get things. And that's what I find with most women. The nature of who we are isn't the icky woman ways. Some women, a small percentage of women, yeah, that's who they really, really are. But most women, no, that's not the true nature of who we are. The true nature of who we are is so covered up. Pardon me. Sometimes I remember to drink some water during these things. But the true nature of us is so covered up that we got to dig her out. So that's my primary experience with women, that our woman ways aren't the true nature of who we are. It's a protective mechanism. So I'm going to head over. I'll come back and look at the chat here in a moment. But I'm going to head over, see what questions and comments Phil sent my way. Thank you, Phil. There we go. All right. Thanks, Peter. Karen is an empire. Well, thank you. That's quite the compliment. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. So I'm gonna thank you, Mark. Knocking it out of the park again, Karen. Hey, Karen, for years I tried to justify my ex's changes on the birth of our second child. Was I wrong? I mean, that's what good men do. It's not wrong. That's just the nature of good men. You try to justify the changes, and you're so giving and kind and want to see the best that you give excuses for your wife's behaviors. That's just part of the challenges a good man has, that then he feels duped and gets blindsided by really seeing who their wife is. So it's not wrong. It's just knowing that's part of your nature. So if, in the future you decide to date or be in a relationship, that the value of knowing these things is knowing them from the beginning, so you can set clear boundaries and navigate it from a healthy place and know the weaknesses within yourself of justifying changes in your wife or poor behaviors, and not do that anymore. And it doesn't mean she'll be perfect or you'll be perfect, but that's what I'd say. Okay, Karen, I have to ask, when you finish your shows, are you empowered or exhausted with the subjects you share? They are so deep, and I can't help but wonder if you collapse after you go off air. Thank you for that. They are actually feel very empowering, is a good word. And doing the live shows fills my cup. That's part of, meaning like it energizes me. I get done with my live shows. I open my office door. David, my mentor, his office is there. Peggy, my other mentor, and his partner, her office is right here behind this wall. And Josie is right out the door diagonal to my office. And we are all here for a half day on Saturdays. And I come out of my office and all excited and share my favorite parts of the show. David always asks, what were the highlights? What did you enjoy talking about the most? So I feel very energized. And part of why I do live, because live videos fill my cup and energize me in a way that recorded videos don't. I like recorded videos. I like doing video, period. But I'd much rather be live, which is then why I take, for those who can't join live or don't prefer the live, that's why I take clips from the live show. And that's always my plan, to then post during the week as just regular videos, as opposed to recording all the time. I would never get anything else done that I need to for my students. So the live shows they energize me, and then I wrap up and go home and get to spend time with Adam. And I've filled my cup and feel great. So I love being here, and thank you for that question. Yeah, thank you, John. Karen, you sure worked on yourself to come this far. I thank you. I have worked a lot on myself. And, you know, my husband's so sweet. Adam's so sweet. He'll say, you know, I think I've shared every once in a while. I was like, "Hi, you remember when I da-da-da-da-da?" And he's like, "Not really." He's like, you're not that bad. Like, yes, he forgets. Good men have short memories. So thank you so much. And I keep working on myself. You know, when I do topics on the live shows, it is often that I have to look at a deeper aspect of myself in these woman ways that I haven't seen or acknowledged, or it gets exposed where I need to work on something in my marriage that I'm not dealing with. So these shows, when I'm planning them and talking them out with David, like, it's always kind of like, oh, what am I going to stumble on this time? So it's a learning process always. Thank you, Alex. You are fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you. And thank you guys so much for being here and being who you are. So I'll hop back over to the live here for a minute, or to the chat. I'm on the live, and we'll just see. Oh, all right. Lots going on in the chat today. All right. Thank you guys. Just see if there's anything else before I wrap up. It's a nice fall day here in Denver, finally. I think it's like 50 something degrees outside. It's cloudy and the leaves are beautiful. So I'm excited. My husband and I, we're going to make chili tonight. Last year we made our own chili recipe, kind of like taking different things from other recipes and making our own. And so, yeah, it's our first chili of the fall season. So I always love that. Thanks, Johnny Good. This was an excellent one today. I appreciate that. And thank you so much. Last one, and then I'll wrap up. Maggie, the substitute teacher. Thank you for always being here and making generous contributions. I appreciate that so much. You are welcome for the amazing teachings, and go check out Maggie, the substitute teacher's channel. She's got some fun things, and she does some reactions to my videos and her thoughts. So go check that out. And then she's also got some fun recipes and does great things in the kitchen. Kyle, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for the great content. You're helping a lot of people. You are welcome. And thank you. And you know that. And thank you so much. Yes. So, all right. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. There's lots going on. I read through the chat afterwards. It just goes and goes. So I just pick out what I can. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you next week live from San Diego. So excited about that. I've been to California once, but Northern California. I've been to Truckee. I've never been to Southern California. So I'm excited and looking forward to it. And we'll see what we talk about next week. I think it's going to be a Q&A. So if you want to submit any questions, there's also a link in the description to submit a question for the call-in show, but I'll pull some of those for the Q&As. So have a great weekend.